Hello, everyone. This is Kristen Howe, and today we have a very special guest. It's the wonderful and talented Debra Poneman. Now, many of you, knowing that Debra is a renowned transformational leader in her own right, have requested Debra to share her teachings, and since she couldn't interview herself, she asked me to do the honors. And I am absolutely thrilled to be here interviewing Debra today, and I know you're going to love this call. So, Debra, welcome.
Thank you. It's very exciting to be on my own show.
Right? What a unique experience. And I know, everybody here has so many questions that they want me to ask. So I have tons of questions for you. But first, what I'd like to do is share with everyone a little bit about your amazing self. Debra spent the decades of the 70s in India and Europe in complete silence and deep meditation for months at a time. And while she was back in the U.S., she taught meditation to thousands. In the 80s, Debra discovered the works of the great masters of the Western metaphysical thought, such as Napoleon Hill, Emmett Fox, and Florence Shinn. These are men and women who embraced the principles which are now known to us as the law of attraction. Recognizing that the world was in need of these teachings, Debra created Yes to Success seminars, and within a few short years, her seminars were taught in dozens of U.S. cities and countries worldwide. Her teachings reached Fortune 500 companies and international associations, while some of her students went on to become New York Times best-selling authors, world-renowned speakers, household names, millionaires, and even billionaires. In 1988, with a book deal in hand, an infomercial running in 32 major markets, and negotiations underway for her own national TV talk show, Debra gave it all up when she realized she had a greater passion. Now, after 20 years of disappearing from the public eye while staying true to her teachings, Debra is back as a best-selling author. Today, she will share her amazing story and the simple secrets of how true happiness, prosperity, and lasting success are created. Now, on today's call with Debra, you'll discover how to create the situation where a higher force takes over the manifestation process. You'll find out who you should and shouldn't share your dreams with. You'll discover what the beings of light on the other side want you to know about what is important while you are here on Earth. And finally, you'll find out what one person can do to influence the entire creation. And before we dive into those points and the questions I have, can you share with us your journey and the major turning points that allowed you to manifest your current level of success and start the company called Yes to Success? Because, from what I've said here and from what I know, didn't you start out as a meditation teacher?
Actually, I did. And I know that when people hear that the name of my company is Yes to Success, they think I'm going to talk about how to climb the corporate ladder or how to get yourself a big house and a sweet car, which a lot of people have done utilizing what I teach. But the truth is that, and you and I know this, and I know all of our listeners know this, that success is an inside job. None of those things are ever going to make you feel successful unless you are full of success first on the inside. So having spent not only the decade of the 70s studying with the great master Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, but with other great masters of the East and the West, actually on 6 continents, I know for an absolute fact that without the inner silence that meditation brings, outer success will always leave you feeling empty. We tend to think that accumulating things and titles will make us happy, but we know that it never will. However, of course, once you have the inner success established through a practice like meditation or some of the other techniques that I'm going to share today, it's easier to achieve outer success because you're not attached. You're not desperate. You know that if it leaves tomorrow, you're still going to be happy. And, Kristen, we actually talked about it before we started this formal call, that there are so many things going on in all of our lives. But if you have techniques that work from the inside out, like a ship anchored to the silent depths of the ocean, no matter how many storms come, you're not going to capsize. You still feel silent on the inside. So anyway, that isn't really talking about my journey, but I just wanted to share that. And yes, I did become a meditation teacher many decades ago, and my journey actually began when I was in college, and I learned to meditate. And I'd like to say that I learned to meditate to be centered and peaceful, but the truth is it was the early 70s, and I learned to meditate because I thought it was really the cool and hip thing to do. And hey, why not be cool and hip the easy way? So I started meditation for that exact reason. And something interesting happened, and that was my life transformed so dramatically. I would find that things that used to throw me completely off course. I was in college at the time, things with boyfriends and schoolwork and parents and money. They weren't throwing me off anymore. Again, I was feeling that silence, and I decided that I wanted to learn how to teach meditation to other people. And I quit school and I went and I became a meditation teacher. I studied with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and I was with him for actually 6 months, and then I came home for a while, then back for another 6 months, and then came home for a while. And as you said in my introduction, a lot of that time was spent in complete silence, really not speaking at all, and meditating for 10, 12, sometimes even 14 hours a day, and fasting for much of that time. And when I came out and I was teaching meditation to other people, I was very, very happy. However, I was not making enough money to even put food on my table. And I realized that I should probably do something that made me a little money so that I could buy things like health insurance and car insurance, or actually a car. And so at the end of the decade of the 70s, I left the meditation community that I was living in, and I moved to Los Angeles because I thought that would be a place where I could make a lot of money so that I could move back and continue to live in this meditation community. So I went to LA, and I didn't know back then that you should do something that was your passion. I thought I should just do something that made me a lot of money. So I became an account executive for a financial company, which basically meant I sold investments. I was a dismal failure because I was very attached to every one of my clients. You know, when you sell something, you're supposed to be happy that you made a sale, you made a nice commission. I would go home and I would cry. Literally, I'd cry to my then husband. I'd say, I sold that nice person an investment, because who knew if it was going to pan out or not? I didn't. I couldn't guarantee anything. So I was a failure, but we all know that everything we do, even if it seems like it's absolutely the wrong thing, there's a higher power guiding all of us. So we have gratitude for everything that we're doing. And I had gratitude for that job, even though I was horrible at it. And one day I was invited to go to what I thought was going to be a financial seminar where I thought I was going to learn more about stocks and bonds and how to be effective at sales. And it turned out to be a new age gathering, and it was outside of LA in the marina. And I walked in, and the man who was giving the presentation, his name was Chris. I never saw him again, but the minute he started speaking, I absolutely knew what I was going to do for the rest of my life, because he said that the way to bring about true prosperity is not to invest wisely, but rather to wish other people success and prosperity, to help people become successful and prosperous, either by mentoring them or teaching them, or just being supportive, or just wishing success and prosperity from your heart to theirs. And he said that the way to keep money away from you was by begrudging somebody else their happiness, their success, their prosperity. And he talked about the law of attraction. And again, what was that? At least over 30 years ago. And really every single cell in my body was vibrating with what he was saying. And the next day, I did what every intelligent person would do. I quit my job, even though I was still pretty much broke. I quit my job, and I spent the next 4 months of my life studying the great iconic teachers of success like Napoleon Hill and Wallace Wattles and Emmett Fox and Catherine Ponder. And I took the juiciest gems from all of these teachings, and even from times before all of these teachers were in the 20th century. There are people who taught principles of success and prosperity like Marcus Aurelius. But I took them all and I put them into a beautiful, profound package, and I named it Yes to Success. And what happened was I was all ready to launch my seminar, and then I froze because the self-doubt started to creep in. I was 28 years old. I was a woman. And that made a difference back in the early 80s. I was going to go out and teach success principles. I had no business experience other than teaching meditation. I drove a 10-year-old beat-up Chevy Bel Air that my aunt had left me when she passed away. I was basically broke, and I was going to teach people how to be successful. So needless to say, I had a few doubts, but here's something that I knew because all of the great teachers said it. And that is that an idea comes to you because it wants to be manifested by you. If your idea that you have wanted to be manifested by me, it would have come to me. You dream the dreams that you're supposed to manifest. I dream the dreams that I'm supposed to manifest. And ideas come to us at a time when the universe needs that idea, that the Creator, God, the God of your understanding, depends on us to listen to his, her whispers in order to uphold creation. See, God can't go out and start a seminar company. So God whispered in my ear, start the seminar company, bring these messages. God can't, put on an apron and open a gluten-free bakery. So God whispers into the ear. It's kind of a funny image. So God whispers in somebody's ear, start a gluten-free bakery. People need gluten-free products right now. And again, ideas come when it's the right time in creation for them to be manifested, when the laws of nature governing their success are at their peak. So, and I know that probably everyone on the line has had a brilliant idea at some time in their life. They didn't act on it, and a year or two later, somebody else manifested that idea and was very successful or was making millions. I know everybody's nodding their head. That would be me. And I want to say, hey, you had first dibs, but you didn't act on it. So God had to pick the second stringer to manifest that idea. So I knew that those principles wanted to be taught by me. And so doubts and all, I did something that I recommend everybody do, and that is I took a step from which there is no turning back. You see, if you wait for everything to be perfectly in place, it just ain't going to happen. There's never a time where everything is perfectly in place because we live in a relative universe, and there are always going to be loose ends. So I had to take a step from which there is no turning back. So what I did was I rented a room, I created a poster, and I went around putting up posters all over Santa Monica saying, Debbie Olson, which was my name at the time, to give presentation on how to say yes to success. And I did. I went ahead, and by the way, one of the principles that I like to share with people, and that is be careful with whom you share your cherished ideas, because when something is just a tiny idea, it's just a little teeny sprout that can be easily crushed, don't share it with people who are going to tell you all the reasons why it won't work. I call them the discouragement committee. And they're going to, right? The people are going to give you all the reasons why it's not the right time. Somebody else should be doing it. What are you thinking? And I didn't tell anybody what I was doing because I didn't want to be confronted by the discouragement committee. And I also believe that when we tell everybody what we're going to do, we very seldom do it. There's an expression, those who talk the most do the least, and those who talk the least do the most. And I wanted to keep that energy. It's like keeping the steam in a kettle. I wanted to keep it inside the kettle so that it would burst forth as the manifestation of my success seminar company. But if I kept leaking it to everybody, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, then I'm going to write a book, and then I'm going to, then I'm letting off the steam, and that pressure isn't built up. So I kept it inside, and the night that I gave my presentation at the Santa Monica Public Library, they were standing room only, and within the next few years, my seminars were taught in most major U.S. cities and 7 countries internationally, and I had corporate clients, and anyway, the rest is, as they say, history.
Well, the rest is history, except you actually walked away from it. So at the height of your success, you said, nope, this isn't the thing. I have a higher. What happened there? Can you explain that?
Well, yes. My company continued to experience really tremendous growth, and by, I guess it was 1987, yes, I was being represented by a top literary agent who was in conversations with a major publisher to put Yes to Success in book form. I had an infomercial running in 32 markets. Some of today's most renowned and successful New York Times bestselling authors and transformational leaders were my students. I was also in negotiations for my own daytime TV talk show. So basically every goal I had set for myself, and I'm very big on goal setting. I'm very big on putting your order into God. God, this is what I would like you to manifest for me. Just write it down. And I teach a very specific method of goal setting in my Yes to Success program, which is pretty foolproof in having your goals manifest. But everything that I had written down was coming true. And I just, in 1988, I gave it all up. Everything, the infomercial, the TV show, the book, the seminars. I was supposed to go do a big program in Singapore. It wasn't that any tragedy befell me or I realized I was an imposter or something like that. Actually, it was quite the opposite. In July of 1988, my daughter was born. And truthfully, the moment the midwife handed me that little girl, I looked in her eyes and I knew that if I was going to be true to my own teaching, the cornerstone of which is to listen to your inner voice and follow your heart, I knew that my career would have to come to a screeching halt, because if I didn't walk my own talk, how could I expect anyone to trust my teaching? Because I believe that people all have built-in authenticity meters, and we are becoming more and more and more sensitive. And if a teacher isn't really true to their own teaching, it is screamingly obvious to all of us these days. And if I was traveling around the world when my heart was home with my baby, then I would have been an imposter. And I'll tell you something, Kristen, it was very funny because nobody was happy with me. I had a line of people who were waiting for me to just kind of push that baby out and get back to work. And my agent was waiting, the publisher was waiting, the producer was waiting, my clients were waiting. And when they called and said, hey, we heard you had the baby, let's get going, I said, I'm really sorry, but you're going to have to call me back in 18 years. And that actually turned into 21 when my son was born. And everyone said, literally everyone said, have you gone completely out of your mind? And I said, absolutely. Right out of my mind and right into my heart. And I had to do that to be true to myself, for my own happiness, for my own well-being. But really, it wasn't that I was, some kind of gigantic hero. I didn't have a choice. I was totally in love. I didn't want to leave that child to go to the bathroom, let alone to go to Singapore. And really, that's a great principle of success that I share in my teaching, and that is that we all really do have to go out of our minds and be led by our hearts, not only for our own happiness and success, but really for the survival of our planet. Because I also believe there's a quiet revolution taking place that's leading us into the future. And we, the people who are listening to this call, we're the leaders of that revolution, and it's a heart center revolution. And we're the ones who will bring that heart-centeredness into business, into politics, into education. And it's going to be a future where our problems are going to be solved by our hearts overruling our minds, and kindness and compassion and cooperation are going to take the place of competition. And I also believe that people will begin to enter not only personal interactions, but even business interactions with the thought, not what can I get, but what can I give? How can I serve? How can I win without anyone else losing? And that will only happen when we go out of our minds. And one of the things that I would tell people, because the mind judges, the mind divides, the mind separates, the mind fears, the mind looks for what's wrong with ourselves, what's wrong with others, how we're different, and the heart connects. It sees what's right. It unifies. It loves. It doesn't look for what's wrong. It looks for what's possible. And so following my heart, I just knew that I wanted to be a mom at home. And that's what I did for 21 years. If you wanted to find me, I was at Chuck E. Cheese. Yes, even my teenagers like Chuck E. Cheese. No, just kidding. But they definitely liked it when they were kids. I spent way too much time there putting those tokens in and getting the tickets out.
Hilarious. Let me ask you a question, because one of the things that I love about you, and I think that is so powerful for everybody listening, is how human you are. You're so human and willing to admit your humanness, and that's amazing for all of us because we can really learn from that. Did you ever doubt that you made the right decision to give up your career and stay home with your children?
Well, the answer is, if I didn't tell the truth, I'd say, oh, no, absolutely not. I always loved being at home with them, especially when they were teenagers. That was just a ball.
Yeah.
My idea of a good time. But the truth is that I totally doubted it. There were many, many times that I thought I made a gigantic mistake. And to tell you the truth, when I really thought that I'd blown it was when my students started becoming best-selling authors, or when I would turn on the TV and there they would be smiling across the airwaves. I mean, I knew that what I needed to do at that moment was to wish them success and prosperity and send love to them. And I knew those techniques, and they really do work. However, the truth is that, of course, I had doubts because I'm human. And if you don't have doubts, then you're a robot. I mean, we are humans. Human beings doubt. And I remember this one time, it's actually one of my favorite stories to share. It was when the kids were really little. They were like about 2 and 5. I was still living in Fairfield in Iowa at the time. And I remember it was a day where they were really off. They were really, nothing was making them happy. So I decided I was going to put them in front of the TV, and they wanted to watch Barney, the big purple dinosaur. And I was doing a channel check. True story. I'm doing a channel check. And as I'm turning the dial, I see Oprah. And just as I'm about to keep turning the dial, for a split second, I see that Oprah's guest is one of my former students, one of the people who had took Yes to Success numerous times in the early 80s. And not only was this person on Oprah with his best-selling book, but he was showing Oprah the power of the mind using one of the techniques that I used in my seminar. Actually, it was something that I had cognized in meditation. Now, I want to be very, very clear that there was nothing wrong with this person using this demonstration. He didn't steal anything from me. When I decided I was going to stand with my kids, I said to all my students, take my material, teach it to the world. The world is ready for this. The world needs these principles. And basically some of the stuff had come out of my own brain and out of my own heart, but a lot of it, as I say, had been around for century or millennium. So there was nothing wrong with him showing this demonstration to Oprah, but I was a little bit vulnerable that day, and Oprah is just going berserk over this demonstration. She said, this is the most powerful thing I've ever seen. Oh, my gosh, I'm going to do it with my whole staff. And I'm standing in front of the TV, knee-deep in dirty diapers with these 2 whiny kids on the couch. And basically what happened was I just lost it. I just burst into tears and started sobbing. I feel like crying now. I was standing in front of the TV sobbing, which of course made my kids stop crying because they were like so flipped out. Like, oh geez, what do we do now? And I'm just like sobbing and sobbing. And then I remember as clear as it was today, my daughter goes, Mommy, I said, what's reading? You promised to make us popsicles, which kind of snapped me out snapped me out of the pity party. I said, okay. And I went into the kitchen. I was going to make those orange juice popsicles. So I'm pouring the orange juice into the little plastic molds, and I'm still feeling very sorry for myself. And I just said to God, I said, God, I think I really made a big mistake. And, I'm just like sobbing. And God said, and I always say, when I say God said, it just means my own inner voice or my own higher self. It's not that God's voice says, Debra, like Charlton Heston in the Ten Commandments. It wasn't like that at all. Just the little voice said to me, remember the book, which of course made me cry more. And I said, yes, I was going to write that book. And then this little voice said, no, not that book. And then the voice reminded me about a book that I had read previously about somebody who had died, and actually they had the experience that a lot of people share, that they went through this tunnel of darkness and then there was a being of light at the end of the tunnel. And this particular gentleman, who happened to be a man who had never had a spiritual, quote unquote, spiritual experience in his life, but he was given a chance to come back and do it again. And he said that what happened was that the being of light said to him, would you like to see a movie reel of the high points of your life? And he said, absolutely. And the movie reel was very, very short. It was him dancing with his daughter at her wedding and him showing his son how to hold a baseball bat. And really just a few little instances. And he said to the being of light, wait a second, what about when I became an Eagle Scout? What about when I brought my company public? What about when I opened the factory in China? And the being of light said, all of those instances glorified you. And then the being of light said, would you like to see the life of somebody who also just made their transition and somebody who you knew very well? And the man said, yes, absolutely. And as he described it, he said these curtains of light parted, and there, sitting on a throne of golden light surrounded by a host of angels, was the woman who used to clean his home, who used to have to take 2 or 3 buses just to get to his house, just so she could make money, again, just to put food on the table. And the being of light said that she had permission to show this reel of this person's life. And it was pretty much an endless reel. And it showed her carrying a pot of soup to a sick friend. And it showed her holding her grandma's hand as her grandma made her transition. And it showed her comforting a sad child. And it showed her cheering at a baseball game for the kids whose parents couldn't be there to cheer because they were working 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And it showed her just going up to people at church and saying, how you doing today? And how are the kids? And giving them a big hug. And this reel just went on and on and on. And eventually the being of light turned to the startled man and said, when you get here, you find out that the only thing that matters while you're on earth is how much love you give. And I remembered that when I was standing there pouring the orange juice, and I thought, if that's true, then I'm doing the most important thing that I could possibly do. And also deep inside, I knew that what I taught in my seminars was true, and that is that each of us has a calling. Each of us was put on earth to fulfill our God-given purpose. And if you follow your heart, even if you take what appears to be a detour, your life's purpose is not going to go away. If you take a circuitous route, if you're following your heart, you will end up at your destination. For example, if you take time away from your career to be with your kids, and I'm not saying that everybody should be a mom or dad at home. I mean, I don't even know if my kids were better off with me being home. All I know is that I was home with them, and I'm not going to argue with reality. So it was exactly as it should have been. But if you take a few years to go work with AIDS patients in Africa, or work on a political campaign, or be with your mom for a year, taking care of her if she's making her transition, whatever it is, your life's purpose is not going to go away as long as you're listening to your inner guidance. The impulses of your heart are nothing less than your destiny calling you. So don't ignore those impulses. Follow them, and I promise you, you'll end up at your ultimate destination. And I believe it's the only route there. And I'll tell you one other thing, and that is that 20 years go by in the wink of an eye. I mean, I don't even remember those 20 years. I remember isolated instances. I don't know where they went to, but I'm glad that I followed my heart. That's for sure. And, one of the things, in the 80s and 90s, people were frantic about making money and accumulating possessions. And now I feel like people are frantic about finding their passion or finding their destiny. And I say, don't be frantic about living your destiny. It's not going to go away. Everything will happen in perfect timing. And if it's not happening for you right now, it's only because, well, let's put it this way. When you pray and you ask the Creator for something you want, there are only 3 answers that the Creator will come back to you with. And those are yes, not now, or I love you so much that I'm not going to answer that prayer. So it's all about patience and knowing that there is a higher power. And don't fall into the trap of thinking that someone is going to do what you were put here to do, because it cannot happen. I know before I said how many of you have an idea and you didn't act on it and then somebody else did it. But the truth is that can happen. But you see, no one can do what you were put here to do. I love the story in the Kabbalah where this great rabbi, his name was Zusha, and he was teaching the students, and he said, when I get to heaven, God will not cite the great men of my lineage and ask me, why were you not Moses? Why were you not Abraham? He will only ask me, why were you not Zusha?
I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And that's it. And we all have all the qualities we need to do the great things that we were meant to do. And if you leave the world without sharing your unique gifts, then the world will be forever lacking. No matter how many other giants come and go, and no matter how many other people do things similar to what you want to do, but there are people who came to Earth whose lives can be influenced and transformed only by you. That's the contract they came in with. So don't think you missed the bus. There's another one on its way.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you, and I think it's so important that, you say this, that we should all let our light shine, and it's not just for us, it's for the whole world. Am I right about that? I'm kind of paraphrasing.
Yes, absolutely. And I am going to talk about, that's right, how to bring more light into the world. And I just had one other thought, and I always want to add this so that people don't think that I'm some kind of saint, because I definitely am not. But one other thing that I want to share with people is that a couple years ago, my friend, her name is Mary Pat Knight, and she's a great transformational leader as well. And she said to me one day, we were at lunch, she said, you gave up your career to be with your kids for another reason too, don't you? And I said, no. And, well, she said, other than to be with your kids. And I said, no. And she said, yeah, you were afraid of success. I said, really? And she said, yeah, either that or failure. And I was like, OMG. I probably even said OMG, I'm that trite. But, and I realized that she was absolutely right, because I went out at the top. And now I have these great stories to share people. I had the TV show, and I had the book about to be published, and I had these people waiting for me. But guess what? I don't know if that TV show would have been successful. I don't know if that book would have been a hit. So I went out at the top because I didn't have to risk failing. And because think about it. I mean, now I know that there's no such thing as failure, that thinking you failed is just a trick your ego plays on you when it makes you think that what other people think about you is important. Because, I mean, failure in whose eyes? I mean, we live 90% of what we do is because we worry what people are going to think about us. Just imagine what you would do if you absolutely didn't care what other people thought. And the truth is, what you think they're thinking about you is not what they're really thinking about you anyway. They're not even thinking about you at all. They're thinking about themselves, but we still live our lives based on what we think other people are thinking. So that's what I did. I thought, wow, hey, this could all go south. Why not go out at the top? And then the other thing is, I was afraid of my own greatness. It was moving so fast, and basically deep inside, I didn't think I was worthy of a TV show and a best-selling book. I was just little Debbie Halpern from Skokie, Illinois. And so now that I look back, my daughter was born at just the right time to save me from my own greatness. But the truth is, now I'm back, because you can run, but you cannot hide. And whatever you were put on earth to do, it is going to present itself to you again and again until you say, okay, I get it. I'm going to do it. Damn the torpedoes. And I actually remember the day that my friend Janet Atwood, who's another great transformational leader, said to me when the kids were, I don't know, they were pretty old, like 18 and 21. And she looked at me, she said, isn't it about time that you stop pretending that your kids still need you and you get your butt back to work? And that's almost a quote. Actually, on the air, you can't say the word she really used. But the truth is that I knew that they didn't need me, but I was attached to them. I didn't want to let go of them. I still don't want to let go of them because, when you have kids, it's precious, it's precious. They give one little thank you, one little appreciation from your children and you don't even need it because the joy is just in the giving. And it's really a hard thing when you have the instant gratification of putting a meal on the table and they give you a hug because it's delicious. It's hard to give that up. So I knew that they didn't need me. They would have been fine if I had gone back to work a long time ago. And I just want to read at this point, and then I'm going to answer the question about how we impact the world. But I love the quote from Marianne Williamson. And I know that everybody listening has probably heard it before, but it goes, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And that's Marianne's quote, and it's actually a great segue into the question that you actually asked, which is by letting our own light shine, something about, can we do it not only for ourselves and for the world? And I say yes, and absolutely, I don't believe that everyone has to do huge things like being New York Times bestselling author, on the cover of Time magazine. In the Talmud, it says, if you change the life of one man, you've changed the world. And maybe your purpose is to just get up in the morning and do random acts of kindness. And back in 1981, when I first began teaching Yes to Success, we were living in a larger world. There was no internet to connect us. As a matter of fact, when I started studying the masters like Napoleon Hill, I listened to his lectures on these little cassette tapes. And if I wanted more information, I had to go to the library and look it up on this little film called microfiche. You didn't just press a couple buttons on your computer and see everything that Napoleon Hill has ever written or spoken. If I wanted people to attend my Yes to Success seminar, they had to get in a plane and fly to where I was giving it and stay at a hotel and rent a room and pay for their food. And it ended up being thousands of dollars. Now people can get my entire seminar, and just listen to it on their computer. They just click and there it is. But back in the 80s, we knew there was chaos and suffering in the world. The Vietnam War had ended in 1975 with the fall of Saigon, but we didn't get the news instantly. When there is any breaking news, now we get it in milliseconds. 30 years ago, or even 10 or 20 years ago, not so quickly. But because of that, back then, we could be less involved with the suffering of others because it wasn't in our faces. But now we know when, another gay youth commits suicide because he or she is being bullied, or we know instantly when someone goes on a shooting spree, looking for Jews in Europe or black people in Alabama or Muslims in New York. Now we know that we're a one world family. And if a young girl in Africa is subjected to genital mutilation, that is our daughter. Or a little boy in Iraq is taken from his home and made into a killer in the name of God, that's your son. So success is no longer about how can I survive and I become well known and I thrive and I make a lot of money, but it's how can we survive and we thrive. The way that I say that we do that, well, one of my favorite kind of concepts is that there's a universal light that's so bright, and it's brighter than 1,000 suns, and it's full of light, and it's full of love, and it's full of grace, and it's full of compassion, and all the bounty that God wants to shower on all of his children. And this is light that dissolves the darkness, and it shines on everyone equally, just like the sun shines equally on rich, poor, black, white, old, young. And I know that everybody listening has actually felt that light of grace. You can close your eyes right now and you could feel a vibration. You might not take the time to notice it, but there is a vibration vibrating all around you right now. And that's the grace of God. And I also believe that it's closer at this time in creation and less filtered than it has ever been before, because the 100th monkey has started cleaning its sweet potato and the 100th person has realized that love is all there is. And so this light of grace is shining, and it doesn't matter who the person is. I've had the experience of looking into the eyes of a homeless person panhandling on the street and been blown away by their light. And the more we let this light of grace into our lives, the more we become imbued with the light and we become transmitters of the light. Do you see? So it's just like, even though the sun is shining, we could put up an umbrella between us and the sun. We can go inside the house. We could build a bunker and live underground for our entire lives. It's not that the sun isn't shining. It's just that we've put something between us and the sun. And the same thing with this light of grace. It's up to us how much grace we want to let in to our life. And if you notice, Kristen, that some people seem to be full of light and it just feels so good to be around them, and other people not so much. Have you noticed that in your own experience?
Absolutely.
Basically, it's because when you let the light in, you start becoming a generator of that light. And then not only the people, but everything you want is attracted to you. Okay? So the question is, how do we bring more of that light of grace into our lives? And the truth is that every act we do, every word we speak, every thought we allow ourselves to indulge in, I didn't say think because some of them come spontaneously, but we could either dwell or we can kind of just flick them off. Everything either allows more light into our lives or puts a veil between us and the light. Okay? So, for example, we listen to a seminar like this, a telesummit, Your Life Without Limits, and all of the guests are so uplifting. We feel so full of grace, so full of light, so uplifted after we hear these speakers. And then we go into the room and we want to share with our partner how excited we are about something that we just learned. And they kind of curtly say to us, don't bother me right now. And then the light dims a little bit, right? Or we glance over at the TV and they're watching some political figure, and the political figure is just bold-faced lying, and we just feel sunk and more of that light is gone. And then we see that the dog, peed on the wood floor, and we yell at the dog and we feel badly about it. And it's not really those things that happen to us. It's our reaction to those things that happen. We leave the space of light and love and we start reacting. And the more we react, the dimmer the light gets. It's not our partner. It's not the little dog. It's not the political figure. It is our reaction that either adds a veil or takes a veil away. So when we realize that the universe is always giving us a gift, anytime anything happens in our life, whether it looks good or it looks bad, there's nothing, even Shakespeare, there's nothing either good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. We think, we react, right? So if something appears in our experience that looks bad or jarring, or somebody's mean, or there's some negativity, that is our opportunity to react differently and bring more of that light into our lives and thus onto the planet. And the harder it is not to react negatively, the more light you bring to yourself and on to the planet. So that's why I say the most objectionable people are our greatest gifts, because if we don't let our buttons get pushed, if we don't react, we bring in a much greater amount of light. Like when somebody cuts you off in traffic, you have a choice. You could lay on the horn and, curse at them, or you could thank that person you were about to decimate. Thank you so much for cutting me off, because now I have a chance for greater spiritual gain. Instead of laying on the horn, I could send you love, because who knows, you might be in a hurry to get home from work to tend to your wife who is dying of cancer. Or you can, another thing that you could do is just take a deep breath from your belly, and sometimes that'll bring you back to center. And let's say you say something totally inappropriate and you put your foot in your mouth and you're just about to beat yourself up about it. I know, Kristen, you've never done that, but I have. And so instead of beating ourselves up, we just take that deep breath from the belly, fill ourselves, and say, thank you, God, for letting me say that totally inappropriate thing during that meeting, because now I have a chance not to react by beating myself up, but knowing that it's in your hands. And if I was supposed to have said something different, I would have said something different. So that must have been what I was supposed to say. And just bless the circumstance, and you feel the light pour in, and you have a great sense of peace that will come over you. And that, angst will be transmuted to joy, and the tension will be transmuted to peace. And again, the harder it is to call in the light, the more extreme the circumstances, the more intense the anger or pain, the greater the light will be. And if you don't do it for yourself, choose a different reaction for yourself, do it for the planet, knowing that you're bringing more light on to our planet. And I'll tell you one other little parable from Kabbalah. And there's a rabbi, and the rabbi said to his students, he said, go get me one of those scales of justice, one of those balancing scales. And he said to his students, now I want you to put equal amounts of sesame seeds on either side of that balance scale. So they did that. And then the rabbi said to the students, now we are at a time in creation where there is a delicate balance between good and evil. And we're at a precarious time where we can either go into an age of enlightenment or an age where there's going to be more darkness. And the rabbi said, and every word we speak and every act we do either puts a sesame seed on the side of the scale that will bring about the age of enlightenment or bringing about an age of darkness. And the rabbi said, when you do a random act of kindness, when you give somebody a compliment, when you lend a helping hand, when you hold the door for somebody, when you're open and vulnerable, every time you do something like that, you are putting a seed on the side of the scale that is going to lead to an age, a glorious age of enlightenment. And when we do something that's mean, if we are angry, if we hurt somebody's feelings, if we gossip, we know the things. I don't have to list them, but we're adding sesame seeds to the other side of the scale. And I add, when I share this parable from the rabbi, I say, how do you not know that act of kindness that you just did wasn't the act that tipped the scale, and now we will have an age of enlightenment for all the time to come. So when we are faced with a tough challenge and we feel like we want to lash out or say something mean or justify or be right, just know that it's putting sesame seeds on the side of the scale that we don't want them on. And if we react differently, we're contributing to a world filled with light in an age of enlightenment.
Yeah, it's beautiful. When you hear it like that, it's just like, yes. I mean, that's pretty much all you're left with is this feeling of, yes.
Yeah. And, people don't realize how powerful they are. People think that they're powerless, but it's, when we do feel powerless and we see people in, refugee camps in Darfur, we see, the atrocities that are going on around the world. And we don't realize that the more light that comes onto the planet, the more grace that comes onto the planet, those types of things are going to become fewer and fewer and less until we do have an age of enlightenment for everyone. So your job is only to do those things. And that doesn't mean that we're going to be perfect. That doesn't mean that I never yell at my kids or I don't, lose it or whatever, or cut, let somebody in traffic. But what we could do is still say to ourselves, I love you, I forgive you. Put your hand on your heart and just say you're doing the best you can.
That's amazing. It's so true. Do you have an exercise maybe that you could take us through?
I would love to take you through an exercise. You know, there's so many different ways that we can bring more grace and more light onto the planet. One of my favorites is, I say, treat everybody with great respect. And I always say that the respect with which we treat people like great teachers like yourself, we need to treat the lady who takes her order at the Burger King. And again, of course, I know our listeners never go to Burger King, but I love their fries. Or the kindness with which we hold and esteem people like spiritual leaders. We need to show that same kindness to, the housekeepers who clean the room at the hotel that we're staying at. The more difficult it is to treat somebody with respect, the truth is that we are all made in the image of God. And it might be harder to see God in your coworker who spreads lies about you, or the preachers who preach love and then turn around and do some hateful things, but the Creator sees no difference. If we hate them, we're contributing to the darkness just as much as they are. And the Creator sees, or more, because we know the difference. And the Creator sees no difference between the drug dealer and an honored guest from whom we take out our best china. The Creator loves the misguided senator as much as God loves the light worker. And my favorite quote is, if you cannot see God in the next person you meet, you need look no further. That's actually from Mahatma Gandhi. So one of the easiest ways to bring light onto the planet is to see the God and to treat everybody as the most important person in the world, because everybody is made in the image of God. And one of the things that a lot of us tend to do is we tend to hold back our love from certain people, and we say, I'm never going to forgive them. And there's a Sufi saying that goes, as long as there's room in your heart for one enemy, your heart is not a safe place for a friend. And so if there's one person that you are saying, I will never forgive them for what they did, well, your heart might not be a safe place for a friend. So I say that one of the greatest things that we can do to bring light on, not only into our own lives, but onto the planet, is to ask someone's forgiveness, or to say you're sorry, or to just clear up some misunderstanding between you and another, which was probably, I have known people who have not spoken to family members for 20 years, and I say to them, so why is it that you're not speaking to your brother? And they can't even remember. And then after they do this exercise, they go and talk to their brother, and there was just a complete misunderstanding. What they thought happened hadn't even happened. So I'm going to read a little passage, and I know a lot of people who have heard me speak before, they love hearing this. It's a passage from a book called Towards a Spirituality for Global Justice, and it's a true story about something that happened during apartheid. And I'm going to read this, and after I read this, we'll do a quick exercise.
Great.
And again, in my Yes to Success seminar, I give a lot of other information about ways and a lot of exercises where people can bring more light into their lives and more grace into their lives and onto the planet. But for now, we're going to talk about forgiveness. And by the way, some of the things that I teach are very practical and not as spiritual. But this is actually my favorite. So I'm going to read you this passage from the book, and it goes like this. This is a true story about a powerful moment that took place one day at a meeting of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa following the end of apartheid. The purpose of this commission was to allow the country to move forward as one nation by beginning to heal from the monstrous acts of inhumanity that were perpetrated by the oppressive political system during that dark time in South Africa's history. In order to receive amnesty from the commission, the people who were accused of these horrible crimes had to face the victims themselves or the victims' families, and hear those victims share the impact the crimes that they had perpetrated had on their lives. Here is what happened that day. Next in line at the commission was an elderly black woman who slowly rose to face 3 white security officers, one of whom had just confessed to the brutal murders of both her husband and her only son. The woman had been forced to witness the killing of her husband, whose last words had been, "Father, forgive them." When her turn came to speak, a member of the commission asked the woman what she wanted in the way of justice. Her answer stunned all those in the courtroom. She said she wanted 3 things. First, she wanted to be taken to the place where her husband's body had been burned, so that she could gather dust from the place and give his remains a proper burial. Second, because her husband and son were her only family, she wanted the man who had killed them to become her son. And twice a month, she wanted him to come and visit and spend the day with her, so that she could pour out to him the love she still had in her heart to give. And third, she wanted him to know that she offered him her forgiveness, just as her husband had done. Then she asked that someone help her to walk across the room to where the man was standing, so that she could take him in her arms, embrace him, so that he could feel that he was really forgiven. As the court assistants began to lead the elderly woman across the room, the security officer who had murdered her husband, overwhelmed by what he had just heard, fainted. And as the woman continued to walk, now to come to his aid, one person began, and soon everyone in the entire courtroom was singing ever so softly, "Amazing Grace." How sweet the sound. So what I would like to ask everyone, is there really something that someone has done to you that you can't forgive them for? And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to close your eyes and uncross your arms and open your heart and ask God, the God of your understanding, to show you who needs your forgiveness. Who is it that did something to you, or you did something to them, that was so horrible that there is still that lack of forgiveness between the two of you? Yes, that person who came into your consciousness right now. That soul is the soul that wants to, again, be close to you. And it could even be somebody who has passed on. That soul wants to feel your love and to love you back. So what I'd like you to do is to talk to that person now and know that they were doing the best they can given their life circumstances. You have no idea what they might have lived through in their life that brought them to the point that they did this thing. or maybe it's something that you did that you can't forgive yourself for. And God knows that you were doing the best you could given your life circumstances. God forgave you a long time ago. And now I want you to look into the eyes of the person who you brought to your awareness and just share with them what's in your heart, not to make them wrong in any way, not to justify. Just speak to them from your heart. And notice how their eyes are filling with tears at just the thought that you would be so huge and so generous to forgive them. And now, before you leave, just finish any last words, heart to heart, soul to soul, and just wrap them in a golden cocoon of light, and then wrap yourself into a golden cocoon of light, connected by a golden cord. And feel the vibration, the high celestial vibration of forgiveness. And now you could come back to present time. And what might happen is that the energy of that exercise might transfer to third dimensional reality, and out of nowhere that person might call you in the next 24 hours, or you might feel that the wall between you and them is now gone and you can easily pick up the phone and call them, or neither of those things can happen and that they don't have to happen because it's happened on the spiritual realm, which is the most important and most powerful realm of creation. And I just want to share a little story with you and to finish off this section. And it was a story that was shared by a woman in one of my Yes to Success seminars. And she said, after she did this exercise, she had heard another teacher say that she should get a big jar, and every day, it was something between her and her father, she should write down something that she remembers from her childhood that was wonderful about her father. And she said the first couple days were really easy, and she remembered the time he took her to Disneyland and the time that he bought her some gift and the time he drove her to school, whatever. But as the days went on, it became harder and harder, but she still thought of something wonderful, and she did it for either 30 or 60 days. I don't remember for sure, but she did it for quite a long time. And then what she did is she sent her father the jar, and they hadn't spoken in well over a decade. And she never heard from her father, but years later, when her father got divorced from his then wife, that wife called this woman and said, I just wanted to share something with you that I think is important for you to know. Your father and I are getting a divorce. And when he left, he said to me that I could have everything, the money, the furniture, the artwork. And when he left the house, the only thing he took was a few toiletries, his clothes, and his jar. So you have no idea the impact that your forgiveness can have on another individual. You just know that it has an amazing impact on them, on you, and it brings an incredible amount of light to the planet.
It's so true, and I love that you're shining light on how impactful all of this is, whether we might realize it or not directly in our, in our faces, in our direct world. And so I think that's so powerful. I love that you shared that story. I think it's just incredible. And what I'm doing here is what you're doing here. We both get so excited about helping people live amazing lives. I know that's what you get excited about. And there's so much more that we can learn from you. And I know that you actually went ahead and created a special offer for everyone who's listening to this call. So can you go ahead and talk us through that, what that special offer is?
Yes, I did. As I've mentioned several times, that I began teaching Yes to Success well over 30 years ago. And as I said, so many transformational leaders created incredible empires. I mean, some of these people are household names, and they used the principles that they learned in Yes to Success. And there are so many thousands of other people who took the Yes to Success seminar and realized, I have a woman who was one of the top real estate people in the Chicago area, and after taking Yes to Success, she gave it all up and became a first grade school teacher because she realized that the money wasn't bringing her happiness, and she had always wanted to be a school teacher. So there are a lot of exercises in Yes to Success where people really get in touch with what is going to make them happy in this lifetime, in what's left of our lives. So Yes to Success used to be taught in 2.5 days, and now I've put it into 8 modules that people can listen to in the comfort of their own home. And I absolutely promise that by, I say, attending the Yes to Success seminar in your own home, that your life will not be recognizable when you come out the other end and when you implement these principles in your life. And it starts out with allowing you to really figure out exactly what your ideal life would look like. And I have all kinds of exercises, and people are shocked when they do these exercises and they realize that what they thought they wanted their life to look like was not what their higher self really wanted their life to look like. So we talk about what is success, and I mean inner success. And then the next thing that I teach is how to actually harness the power of our manifestation power, which I know, Kristen, you are an expert in, which is manifesting everything now in your amazing Telesummit series. And in this module, I share powerful techniques of manifestation and using the infinite power of not only our minds, but our hearts, and harnessing that to take the next step, which is manifestation. There's also another module, and I always say that for some reason goal setting gets a bad rap, but I don't think of it as setting goals. I think of it as putting your order into life, because a lot of people wait around waiting for things to show up, for God to give them things that that God doesn't even know that they want. And I use this very, very profound system of quote unquote goal setting to allow people to tap into their inner guidance and figure out their long-term 5-year, 1 year, 1 month, 1 week. It sounds like maybe it's a lot of work, but truthfully, it is so exhilarating. And then you also have a plan so you know what to get up and do each day to do your part to bring you closer to your goals, because I believe that we do have to harness the power of God and the power of manifestation. And I also believe that we can create miracles energetically, and we also have to roll up our sleeves. Sorry, but we do. And I have never seen anybody achieve the glorious life that they know that they can create by not combining both practical and spiritual principles. And I even teach time management because I believe that your good cannot flow through disorder. And if you are not organized, and if your house is filled with clutter and your life is filled with clutter, we clean up our houses and we clean up our lives. And once those pathways are clean and clear, miracles begin to flow into our life. So I have a great system for time and space management. I do have an entire module that is specifically geared to techniques to create unlimited abundance. Remember, I started out driving a 10-year-old beat-up Chevy Bel Air, and I manifested the exact Mercedes that I had that I went out and cut out a picture of when I was driving that 10-year-old Chevy Bel Air. But it wasn't just the picture. It was all of the other things that I did to energetically bring that and so much more, my ideal relationship, millions into my life, and of course, my ideal career. Then the next module is, it's actually entitled, What You Think Is Holding You Back Really Isn't. Actually, there's one before that. There's a whole module on creating vibrant health, because I also believe that we have to create the vehicle that we're going to live out our success and our happiness and our fulfillment in the world. And we have to nourish that vehicle of the body. And I have a very, very simple but very specific plan to create radiant health and clear thinking. And it's not difficult to get yourself into excellent physical health. And I show you how. And then the next module is What You Think Is Holding You Back Really Isn't. And this, I think, contains the most life-changing knowledge of all. And this is where we learn how to get rid of the blocks that are blocking us from creating the life that we really want. And then the last module is more things that we can do to change the world, because we all have that burning desire to contribute to the world. And there are things that we can do without even changing so much what we do on a day-to-day basis that will make a huge impact in terms of bringing light and enlightenment to all the beings on our planet. And so there are the 8 modules in MP3s, and there's also a complete set of the course materials, goal-setting forms, worksheets, time management forms, action plans, mastermind guidelines, all kinds of things. And then I also give people 3 bonus gifts. And these bonuses are other talks that I gave live. And one was at Kristen Janet Atwood's Discover Your Destiny weekend, where I gave a talk on the effortless path to true success and happiness. Great talk. Another one, many people don't know, but I am a best-selling author, and I wrote a chicken soup book. And actually it is chicken soup for the American Idol soul. And I interviewed 50 American Idols and the judges and the producers and the directors. And I actually teach the principles of success that enabled, out of a field of hundreds of thousands, these idols to be in the top 10. And this talk alone is one of the most mind-blowing bodies of knowledge, because you don't get to be the American Idol or even a judge or even a producer or director without implementing some very profound principles of success. And then the last bonus is a talk that I gave at Greg Hapstrett's Money Attraction Boot Camp up in Calgary, Canada. And it's additional techniques to attract wealth into your life now without waiting. And so those 3 bonuses, and it's all $97. truthfully, this is the same seminar that people paid not only $1,000 to take, but paid $1,000 more to get to. And one of the things I urge people to do, once you make this purchase, don't keep it to yourself. Gather your friends together. It's an amazing thing to do with your friends, in a group, with your family members. There are a lot of exercises that you do that you can do more effectively if you do them interactively. So I'm not one of these people that says, if you share it with anybody, then you have to pay me more. No, it's my greatest pleasure if you just $97 and you can gather 20 of your friends and just enjoy. It's a great thing to do at the beginning of the new year. Even if you have done it once, do it again at the beginning of each new year where you want to set some fresh goals and make new commitments to yourself. And it comes with 100% money back guarantee. If you do not feel that it has dramatically impacted your life, and you don't think it is worth $97 and so much more, just let us know and we'll give you a prompt refund and you keep the bonus MP3s. They're yours regardless. And that's the offer.
Wow, that's amazing. By the way, I love that you're, making it basically there's no risk. You get to do this and have huge results, and I think that's amazing. So, but what I'd love to do is actually ask you to share with us, what's possible for some of the people who are listening who are going to take advantage of this offer. So if you could share some of the results you've seen from people who've applied your program.
Well, I have so many people who have, again, manifested their ideal mate. I had a woman who took my seminar who celebrated her 65th birthday and had never been married and was married by her 66th birthday. That's one of my favorites. And I have had people who were in careers that they were not happy in, and I teach a very systematic way to make the transition from something that isn't bringing you fulfillment to what will bring you fulfillment. And I cannot tell you how many people are now living the career of their dreams. But I'll tell you one specific instance. There was a man who had always wanted to have his music published, but he was also, I think he was in his mid-50s at the time and had kind of given up on it. And then in the Yes to Success seminar, we also take some of our desires and dreams that we put on the back burner and put them on the front burner. And within, I think it was, 2 or 3 months, but a very short time after he completed Yes to Success, out of the blue, he received a call from somebody who was introduced to one of his albums that he had made and wanted to produce it. And now he is, it's on iTunes. He didn't give it to me for free. He sent me an email and said download it on iTunes, but it's quite a popular album now. It's a kid's album. And that dream came true for him. But there's so many, I don't even know what to say. I've had people who have become, again, not only best-selling authors, but people who, I have a woman who took Yes to Success who became the barefoot water skiing champion. And I think she's either in her late 30s, early 40s. It was a dream she had put on the back burner. And after Yes to Success, and she was also a writer, and she ended up being published in Oprah magazine, and she became a barefoot water skiing champion. I could go on the craziest things, but so many people turning their finances around, money coming from the most unexpected places, because I don't tell people to limit it to the channel of their work or the channel of an inheritance or a channel, because maybe we don't have those channels. Don't tell God how to shower prosperity down on you. I teach you how to open yourself up to that prosperity coming to you in completely unexpected ways.
I love that. Well, and that's why you're talking about your life without limits, because it sounds like you're talking about your whole life without limits. That's amazing. So, okay, everybody, I'm sure, is now chomping at the bit. So go ahead, click on the special offer button that's on this webpage, and we will take you right there. You know, I know that you're going to want to check this out and see. You know, I can't wait, Debra. I'm sure you're going to get so many more amazing stories just from the people listening. So that's really exciting as well. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with everyone before we go?
Well, I know that this has been a very, very long call, so I'll tell you something really quick. And that is really the most important need of these times is for all of us to be authentically ourselves. And by the way, it takes a lot more strength to be weak than it does to be strong. And the more we choose to be open and to allow our real selves to show, our vulnerability, the more we reveal ourselves, the stronger we will become. And there's nothing that brings light to ourselves and to the planet more than being authentically us. And when we take off our masks that hide our true selves, that's when you'll be in your true power, and that's when you will really be able to say yes to every kind of success that there is just waiting to be part of your life and to shower down on you.
I love that. I think that's the perfect way to end the call. One more time, everybody, I want to encourage you to take Debra up on this opportunity to learn more from her. She's absolutely amazing. She really knows how to create a life without limits, where you truly can have everything you desire and more than you could possibly imagine. So that's the amazing part about this. And, you know, as Debra said, you have absolutely nothing to lose because there's the 100% money back guarantee. And, you know, I've seen real miracles happen from her program. I know that Debra wants you to have a miracle in your life. So once again, if you haven't yet, just click on the special offer button on this page to see for yourself what an amazing package this is. You'll be glad you did. And I think that's it for now.
And Kristen, thank you so much. You are just one of the most wonderful people on the planet. And thank you for interviewing me on Your Life Without Limits. And thank you just for being you.
Thank you.